Aquinas and the Muslim philosophers, the Trinity and the Aristotelian Muslims. The Trinitarian God is a concept not taught in the Quran, but one that has never been shown to be contrary to Islam. The Trinity is often objected by Muslims. It is not part of their revelation, nor it is part of their tradition. They can only object on philosophical grounds, by showing contradictions. But even this is lacking. The Trinity is really only a Christian doctrine. Before the Christians, there were the Jews. But the Jews had no knowledge of the Trinity, even though they had revelation and thousands of years to develop their natural theology. The reason is because the Trinity can only be known through divine revelation. It cannot be known through natural theology. However, we do see traces of the Trinity throughout nature, but these traces are not sufficient to prove that God is Trinitarian. Without revelation, the Trinity cannot be known. These signs are only apparent after the Trinity has been revealed. What we can do with reason are two things in regards to the Trinity. One, we can use reason to come to a fuller and deeper grasp of the Trinity through understanding of person and relations. I can also use philosophy to show that the concept of a Trinitarian God does not contradict natural theology or revealed theology. And this will be our focus when dealing with Islam. Now, certain Muslims are completely incapable of accepting the Trinitarian doctrine because of their philosophical assumptions. For some Muslim philosophers said that philosophy is superior to theology. They believe the Quran is merely for the simple. Theology is easy and for the unintelligent. They said things are known better through philosophy because philosophy is a more difficult and challenging way to come to the truth of God. They believe those who come to this knowledge of God are elevated and, in some sense, superior to others who are weak intellectually and need the aid of revelation to come to know God. One of these Muslim philosophers was a man by the name of Al-Farabi. Now, in his idea that theology is superior, or philosophy is superior to theology, he had an implicit denial that there are truths of revelation not attainable through reason alone. Now, this philosophical assumption prevents knowledge of the Trinity. But there's a problem with this rationalism, this idea that philosophy is superior to theology. And this is the question: how do they know there are no revealed doctrines that are beyond reason? You could appeal to revelation, but the Quran does not say that all theology can be known through reason alone. Also, you could point to philosophy, but philosophy cannot prove that there are no revealed truths that one cannot grasp. We see a similar problem today with the idea of empiricism, the idea that all knowledge can be known through empiricism. However, the statement that all knowledge can be known through empiricism cannot be verified by empiricism. Therefore, this argument must be wrong. When you accept philosophy as superior to theology, we have to look into what separates these men from other non-Muslim monotheists. And for this reason, this position that philosophy is superior to theology was refuted by other Muslim philosophers. Now, one of the main philosophers who took up this challenge of correcting this error was a man by the name of Abu Hamid al-Ghazali. In his book, The Influence of Philosophers, he condemned those Muslims who put too much trust and faith in philosophy. In the preface, he says that these people who place an inordinate attachment on philosophy, neglect their religion as Muslims, and they don't follow holy days and rituals. Apparently because they seem that they are above this, for these nuances of the faith are only for the feeble-minded who only rely on revelation. But they see themselves as superior and not in need of this, because they have come to God through philosophy and reason. Now, some people who see this struggle and this rejection of revelation go too far and completely condemn philosophy. But Al-Ghazali did not fall into this error. Instead, he put theology as king, the highest of knowledge, and philosophy was the queen, which was used to explain and come to a deeper understanding of the revelation that was given to us. Al-Ghazali was very similar to St. Thomas, and the way he approached the distinction between faith and reason. And for this reason, it is these types of philosophers who saw faith and reason as united and not contradictory. It is these Muslims that will most easily accept the Trinity. Now, the only ones who will accept the Trinity will be the non-rationalist Muslims. The doctrines of rationalism is not positively supported by the Quran. Therefore, it's not really proper to use this as a reason to reject the Trinity. Now, the Trinity is also not contrary to the decrees in the Quran. So that sense of revelation, Muslim revelation, does not contradict the teachings of the Trinity. It is only through philosophy that the Muslims will be able to attack the Christian concept of the Trinity. And this is why St. Thomas used his philosophy to defend the reasonableness of the Trinity. Now, one of the big objectors to the idea of the Trinity was a man by the name of Al-Kindi. He was an Aristotelian, and he did a lot to advance Muslim philosophy, similar to St. Thomas Aquinas, who also advanced Christian philosophy. Now, both of these people, the Christian St. Thomas and Al-Kindi, had similar philosophical roots. They were both well versed in the writings of Aristotle, which means they are both good for taking on the problem of the Trinity, because they both have the same philosophical and terminology, as well as a nearly identical natural theologies. So we will look at his objections to the Trinity, and we will see how they are addressed by St. Thomas. His first objection is about oneness. He states, "For all their sects asserts that the three everlasting persons are a single substance. Yet by person they mean individuals, and by single substance they mean that each one of them exists through a property of its own. Therefore, the concept of substance exists through a property of its own." So basically, the first argument is using Boethius' definition of a person, an individual substance of a rational nature, and saying, well, therefore, in God, there are three substances, which means there are three gods, which means to some sort of paganism. Now, if we look at this syllogism, it does contain some truth. But to fully understand the Trinity and the problems with Al-Kindi's arguments, we need to look at the distinctions made by St. Thomas. St. Thomas looked at the idea of a person as defined by Boethius, an individual substance of a rational nature. But he's using the word substance differently than is used by Al-Kindi. In the metaphysics, we see that the word substance is used differently depending on its context. So in the case of the Trinity, it is not a reference to essence or nature, but substance is reference to suppositum, or as the Greeks say, hypostasis. Now once we understand substance to refer to hypostasis, and not essence or nature, we are left with three persons in one single thing. Thus, this concept of Trinity does not contradict the simplicity of God. He gives another argument. Al-Kindi states, we say that if these three are everlasting genera, and the genus is a genus of species, and the species is a species of the individual, then the three genera of species of individuals are everlasting. Then what is everlasting is composed, but everything composed is caused. So what he is saying is that God is made of three specific types. So there are three types of God. God is composed of three parts. Therefore, God is composite. Composites are not eternal, and a Trinitarian being cannot be God because God is not composite. But St. Thomas objects. He states, the name of genre and species, as man or animal, are given to signify the common natures themselves, but not the intention of those common natures, signified by the terms genus or species. But there is this difference, that the term some men signify the nature, or the individual, or the part of its nature, with the mode of existence of singular things, while this name person is not given to signify the individual on the part of the nature, but the subsistent reality in that nature. Now this is common in idea to the divine persons, that each of them subsists distinctly from the others in the divine nature. Thus the name person is common in idea to the three divine persons. Since person does not refer to nature, the notion that there are three different persons in God does not mean that God is composite. This is basically the same refutation of the last argument. Now fourth, he gets another argument. If there are everlasting differences, and differences are the differences of species that fall under a genus, and differences in genre exist in the nature of the species. So basically what he is saying is that insofar as there are differences in God, God is not simple, and therefore this is not a God, according to the natural theology of Aristotle. And this is really the heart of the problem. But St. Thomas offers his refutation. The numeral terms do not denote anything positive in God, but have only a negative meaning. Now division is twofold. One is material, and is division of the continuous. From this results number, which is a species of quantity. So what he's saying is there are two types of numeral terms. One that we usually think of it is quantity, but this is not what we are talking about in the Trinity. St. Thomas states, the other kind of division is called formal, and is affected by opposite or diverse forms. And this kind of division results in a multitude, which does not belong to a genus, but is transcendental in the sense in which being is divided by one and by many. So we understand the numeral terms in terms of multitude. We do not run into problems of a plurality in God that is divided. St. Thomas continues, but we say the numeral terms predicated of God are not derived from numbers, a species of quantity. For in that sense, they could bear only a metaphorical sense in God, like other corporeal properties, such as length, breadth, and the like. But that they are taken from multitude in a transcendental sense. So what he's saying is when we speak about three in God, we are speaking multitude in a transcendental manner. Just like when we say God is simultaneously true, beautiful, and good, we are not turning God into a composite. The same thing is occurring when we say there are three persons in one God. But there's more. St. Thomas says, but number, if taken as a species of quantity, denotes an accident added to being, as also does one, which is the principle of the number. Therefore, the numeral terms in God signify the things of which they are said, and beyond this, they add negation only. So St. Thomas is saying, like the transcendentals, the three persons do not add parts, but only imply the negation of which they are predicated. So, when we talk about God in this manner, we are actually not breaking him up, but showing that God is one. St. Thomas says, so when we say the essence is one, the term, one signifies the essence undivided. And we say the person is one, it signifies the person undivided. And when we say the persons are many, we signify those persons and their individual undividedness. For it is of the very nature of multitude that it should be composed of units. Since that which is a multitude is undivided, the three persons rather affirm the oneness of God. All the problems of Al-Kindi are refuted by examining the heart of the misunderstanding, which is that the three persons are a multitude of relations. This, St. Thomas says, this multitude arises because the three persons are relations, which are predicated relatively, and thus the relations do not import composition in that of which they are predicated. Once the Muslims accept the persons are a multitude of relations, the philosophical contradictions completely disappear.